Welcome back to another edition of Grizzlies Daily, and let's just jump straight into it. We got a lot going on around the NBA and with the Grizzlies. Basically, let's just jump straight into it. Tarek Biberovic, we recently said that the Grizzlies were reportedly going to sign him over from another country that he was playing in, but recent news coming Thursday, he suffered a gruesome non-contact injury where he basically hyperextended his leg during a play, and then he had to be carried off the court. So not a good sign right there for the Grizzlies and Tari Biberovic. My best wishes to him in recovery. So this brings up the question of, do the Grizzlies even go through with the signing this year? Because this injury did look very serious. Now, luckily, sources did say that he did not tear anything, so that is a good sign right there. But one has to think, will the Grizzlies still follow through with a draft and stash signing this year, especially with reports coming out? Now, I think that does affect how they make a deal with him. Um, I've said multiple times that if they brought him over, he would simply probably play in the summer league and then just grow his way up from the G League. I think I think that still stands, but one would have to think the skepticism that comes behind that deal with that injury, depending on how long they have to rehab it. So, with that in mind, that does kind of bring up something that I've been talking about recently. And once again, there's no real report saying that the Grizzlies are in the sweepstakes for this guy Jonathan Kaminga, but I definitely think the Grizzlies should target him. Report coming out from Anthony Slater basically saying Jonathan Kaminga feels like he can be an all-star and become a long-term rotation player. And honestly, I would have to agree. There have been multiple flashes of greatness from Jonathan Kaminga in the Warriors system. Now, obviously, he was taken out of that system for Jimmy Butler, who they traded at the deadline. So it made sense why his minutes were cut. Although I felt like some of the guys that played over him just simply didn't make sense. I mean, this is a Steve Kerr thing. One has to wonder why guys like Guy Santos, who hadn't proven himself once, is starting over. I mean, not starting, but playing over Jonathan Kaminga. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to a lot of people. And obviously, it doesn't make sense to Jonathan Kaminga because he's proven that he can be a guy that helps the team. I mean, he played a vital role in that 2022 championship. So that was a big report for me. So more than likely, Jonathan Kaminga will be dealt in a sign and trade. There are no reports on interested teams, including the Grizzlies, but this is something that I'm following, and this is just a recommendation that I have. So this is all my opinion, but these reports that Jonathan Kaminga essentially wants out are all confirmed. So something else I want to jump into that also came out recently, the New Orleans Pelicans, the division rival for the Grizzlies, recently came out saying there are no untouchable players for them. And that means their entire roster is up for grabs, including Zion Williamson. However, that may not be a possibility for the Grizzlies to go after him unless they simply pull the trigger on the deal. Recently, because these are all allegations, by the way, none of this is confirmed, none of this is saying that he did anything, but basically, a lawsuit came out from a woman that used to date Zion Williamson, and this is coming from TNZ. Zion Williamson is being sued for alleged sexual assault, kidnapping, and terrorizing. Very gruesome details. The woman didn't even want to reveal herself. Apparently, it happened in September of 2020 in Beverly Hills. I'm not going to go into the details of it because these are very graphic. And once again, these are all allegations. I usually don't cover things like this, but this is a pretty big deal, especially with guys like him potentially on the trade block. So his future with the Pelicans and the NBA completely up in question. There's no word right now on how the league is handling this investigation, so it'll be something to kind of look out for. But back to the main point, the Pelicans' entire roster up for grabs. That's including guys like Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, DeJounte Murray, and even, apparently V's Misi, who stood out this year as a rookie. But I want to touch on three guys. Two of them I just named, but three guys that would be perfect for the Grizzlies, and I feel like would be essentially the missing piece for the team. One being Trey Murphy, who blossomed this year despite the injuries that the team went through. becoming honestly a most improved player candidate, and really could have had a good chance at winning the award. So I think Trey Murphy will be perfect for the team. He's a great defender, great shooter, and overall his wingspan just brings a lot more space to the court, brings a lot more energy, young energy at that. So I think that'll definitely be somebody the Grizzlies could definitely go after. Herb Jones, don't really even need to say much. Great defender, great energy guy. He's an agitator when you need him to. I think he's somebody that the Grizzlies absolutely need for a position, whether he plays the 3 or the 4. So I would say the Grizzlies could possibly try to make a deal for him. But one guy in particular that stands out for me, Bruce Brown. He did not get many minutes when he played for the Pelicans. He didn't get many minutes when he played for the Pacers, and he didn't get many minutes when he played for the Raptors. But when he played for the Nuggets, he absolutely was a key piece in that championship run. That's why the Nuggets kind of went downhill when they traded him away. A lot of people talk about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope leaving, but you have to remember, Bruce Brown played a vital role, energy, defense, even shooting. So Bruce Brown would be a key missing piece for the Grizzlies. Plus, he'd be a great mentor with his championship pedigree, bring the energy that the Grizzlies need, especially if they're facing a deficit or if they're letting their foot off the gas. He's a guy that has played with one of the greatest players we've ever seen in Nikola Jokic and even Jamal Murray. He's a guy that the Grizzlies would absolutely shine with. And he's on a team friendly deal. And even if he's not, I think he'd be willing to work a deal if it means he's a rotational player. Once again, this is a guy that did not play much and has not played much in the last year. So I definitely think this is something that the Grizzlies should definitely entertain. And even if there's more players on the Pelicans that I didn't name, at least try to make a deal. I mean, along with the Hornets. When teams are essentially trying to start fresh, that means that's time for you to upgrade from the mistakes. And the Grizzlies need to capitalize on that from the mistakes that they've made themselves. So this is something that the Grizzlies absolutely should capitalize on. And that's just something that I'm feeling as a fan. Now, somebody else that will be a free agent from reports. This report coming from, give me just 1 second. This report coming from Evan Cedry. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But it's coming from him that the overwhelming expectation is Nickeil Alexander-Walker will lead the Timberwolves as an upcoming free agent. This most likely comes as they restructure deals for Julius Randle and Naz Reid. It was kind of on the table that Nickeil Alexander-Walker would probably leave Minnesota. He's a guy, and we just watched the Timberwolves series. Obviously, they lost to OKC in 5. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker, aside from some poor shooting performances, he was a guy that essentially played pretty good that series and pretty good throughout the playoffs, and I think he'd be perfect. I know I say it's a lot, but I think he would be perfect for the Grizzlies just for the simple fact you can get him possibly on a mid-level exception through a sign and trade, and he brings essentially everything that the Grizzlies are asking of him to do, including playmaking. That was something that stood out to me for him, his playmaking and his physical defense. Now, obviously, the fouls with guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you can't really control that. That's just up to the referees. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker is that defender that you can look at, and he can really guard 1 through 4, in my opinion. So I think you can do that. And then offensively, you can even create sets for him. That's something that would be perfect for the Grizzlies, especially as they try to space the court with guys like Ja, Dez, and Jaren, and maybe even Zach Edey. A pick and roll with Zach Edey and Nickeil Alexander-Walker opens the floor for a lot of people. So I think that's something that should be on the table for the Grizzlies. Once again, no reports that the Grizzlies are naming him as a target, but I would not be surprised if we heard any rumors in the next coming weeks as we near the offseason. So that's something that should be on the table for Memphis, and something that we'll definitely be following here at Grizzlies Daily. And something else that we're also following, Darius Garland and Jared Allen are not considered untouchable. Now, Darius Garland, bit of a surprise to me. I don't expect the Grizzlies to make a play for him at all. But Jared Allen, in my opinion, would be perfect. Even if you have him come off the bench behind Zach Edey, he'd be a perfect energy guy off the bench. He can guard the perimeter. He's a great rim protector, great lob threat. I think he'd be perfect for the Grizzlies when it comes to the holes that are in the game at the center position. I mean, let's just be honest. Um, like the Grizzlies, when it comes to Zach Edey, obviously he's still developing. There were gaps in the game where Zach Edey had trouble playing pick and roll defense because of his speed. So you make that up with Jared Allen. If Zach Edey's not hitting it, Jared Allen, he comes in and replaces that. I mean, I personally think, you know, when it comes to the two, obviously Zach Edey has the edge in the post game, but you're not really asking much. With the Grizzlies, you're not really asking much for the center position. You're just asking to kind of be there, be an enforcer, and get the rebounds. Jared Allen can do that. Plus, his rim protection alone helps guys like Jaren kind of get the rebound and push things up court instead of going after every single shot trying to block it, which then would help with foul trouble. So, so Jared Allen is a guy that the Grizzlies could potentially target in the near future. I'm at least hoping so. And another guy that I recently read, Nikola Vucevic. He is looking to be the Chicago Bulls are looking to trade him. Now that has been confirmed by multiple sources. This has been something that's been discussed since the deadline. Everyone kind of thought Nikola Vucevic would be traded at the deadline, but then he wasn't. So I think this gives the Grizzlies an opportunity to kind of refresh things and really look at what can we do to make Chicago happy with a deal for Vucevic. Now, yes, Vucevic is getting older, but I think he still brings a lot of what you're asking for, kind of like in a Jonas Valanciunas role. Because if you remember, Jonas Valanciunas, he brought great shooting, great rebounding, and even solid defense. Vucevic, you have him come off the bench as a shooter slash rebounder and defender. That's all you need. That's really all you need. One thing about it, when we talk about the Grizzlies needing a center, we're not asking for much. We're not asking for a Jokic. We're not asking for a Joel Embiid. We're asking for a guy that can simply play his role and play his role when we need it the most. So that's something that the Grizzlies need to target along with that. And with the veteran aspect, Vucevic has played with many great players, DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, just to name a few. Vucevic has played with some great players. You put John Morant alongside him, I think you got gold. You got gold in a way. And then the tandem of Jaren Jackson Jr. and Nikola Vucevic would actually be good, especially if you're trying different lineups, just to try to see, who works best with what. So that's something the Grizzlies, those are just a few centers the Grizzlies should target. I mean, we've covered nearly every position because if we're being honest, the only position that the Grizzlies really absolutely can say is untouchable, to me, is the point guard. Mostly because you got a starter in John Morant and you have a backup in Scottie Pippen Jr. Two great guys. I don't think you need to get another point guard unless you plan on having him play the two-guard position. Now, that's a position that needs help. Obviously, you got Desmond Bane, but unless you plan on playing Jalen Wells sometimes at the two, that spot needs some help. It needs some serious work. So, to me, every other position besides point guard is untouchable for the Grizzlies. So, isn't considered untouchable. I probably worded that wrong. But basically, the Grizzlies need to trade for every other position besides point guard. And that's something that I feel like if it doesn't happen in the offseason, we're looking at a year that could end like last year. And that's something that no Grizzlies fan wants to go through, especially this late in the season. I mean, you're watching guys like OKC make their first finals, then the Pacers thriving, Knicks thriving, that series going to Game 6, potentially Game 7. So it's just something, as a Grizzlies fan, it hurts to see because you were better than these teams at one point, and then in the span of 2 years, they've surpassed you. So the Grizzlies need to simply wake up and act like they want that first championship, because one thing about it, they get that first championship, that changes the landscape of things, especially how you're viewed as a smaller market. And as a smaller market, that brings in more targets. And with more targets, more rings, more banners, more attention. So that's all I got for Grizzlies Daily today. Like I said, a lot going on. We're going to hear a lot of rumors, a lot of untouchable rumors, a lot of free agency rumors. rumors everywhere when it comes to this offseason. That's what we love about the offseason. So this is something that we're all gonna be following, all gonna be trying to confirm. And like I said, I'm gonna bring it to you guys. If you got any thoughts, anything you want me to answer, or my thoughts on anybody that the Grizzlies should target, make sure to leave them in the comments below, and I'll make sure to try to get to them and even respond to them. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you can see the next upload for Grizzlies Daily. And that's for me. My name is Malik, and I'm signing out. Y'all stay blessed.